You reinstall a game you have not opened in 15 years. The old logo appears, followed by a familiar menu sound. Your body recognizes the moment before you consciously name it. The textures are blocky, the animation is stiff, and the menus are clumsy. Yet the experience immediately feels warmer than many newer games. Then you launch a technically impressive release from this year. Everything is sharper, larger, smoother, and more carefully produced. But after several minutes, your attention begins looking for an exit. You close it and stare at the library again. The old game seems to contain something the new one cannot reach. The obvious conclusion is that games used to be better. Sometimes that conclusion contains a real judgment about design. Some older games were focused, inventive, and genuinely excellent. But the simple story of universal decline cannot explain everything. The past also contained terrible games, unfinished games, and forgettable games. The present still produces experiences that become deeply meaningful to players. So the feeling is real, but its source is larger than graphics or mechanics. A remembered game is never stored in memory as software alone. It becomes connected to a room, an age, a schedule, and particular people. Memory packages the game together with the context in which you played it. A familiar sound can therefore retrieve an entire network of experience. The title screen becomes a doorway to an earlier version of your life. Weekends may have felt longer because fewer responsibilities were waiting. There were fewer messages, subscriptions, tabs, and unfinished adult tasks. Perhaps this was the first digital world you explored without help. Perhaps a sibling sat beside you and argued about every decision. Perhaps a friend showed you a secret that felt impossible to discover. Those emotions attached themselves to the game like invisible saved data. Launching it today can reactivate part of that emotional network. Some of the warmth belongs to the game itself. Some belongs to the people, freedom, and identity surrounding it. This does not mean nostalgia is simply lying to you. It means enjoyment was always created by more than the object. An old game carries years of personal meaning into the present. A new game arrives without that emotional history. Memory also does not preserve the past like an untouched recording. It reconstructs experiences whenever you return to them. Annoying details often lose emotional intensity over time. The controller that disconnected during the final battle becomes a joke. The lost save file becomes a dramatic story instead of pure frustration. The loading screens no longer feel as long as they actually were. The confusing level is remembered mainly through the relief of escaping it. Research on autobiographical memory describes a fading affect bias. Negative feelings often fade faster than positive feelings from the same period. This tendency is not identical for every person or every memory, but it can make a remembered game smoother than the original experience. Replaying it can expose difficulty spikes that nostalgia quietly removed. The controls may feel stiffer than the controls in your memory. The repetition may become obvious after only an hour. You may wonder whether you launched the wrong version. You did not launch the wrong game. You launched the full game instead of its emotional highlight reel. A second distortion comes from selection. You probably played more old games than you vividly remember. A small number became landmarks in your personal history. The mediocre licensed games quietly disappeared from the comparison. The broken releases and repetitive clones disappeared with them. So the past becomes a carefully filtered collection of survivors. The present includes masterpieces, average games, experiments, and failures. Comparing these groups gives the past an enormous advantage. It is like comparing a decade's greatest songs with this week's entire chart. The older decade will appear unusually consistent. Your taste has also become more specific through experience. A child may enjoy almost any game that offers a controllable character. An experienced player notices pacing, balance, interfaces, and recycled ideas. Fewer games now fit the narrower shape of your preferences. That can feel like declining quality even when the audience changed too. First encounters are another advantage that old games keep forever. Your first open world taught you what digital scale could feel like. Your first difficult victory changed your sense of competence. Your first online match revealed the unpredictability of real opponents. Your first meaningful choice felt as though the game understood you. Later games must work inside a grammar you already understand. You recognize the map marker before the tutorial explains it. You predict the skill tree before opening the menu. You know what different loot colors will probably mean. You can already imagine the crafting loop behind the first resource. Expertise makes play easier, but it also makes surprise more expensive. The brain generates stronger predictions from a larger library of patterns. When the prediction succeeds, the experience can feel familiar too quickly. The new game may be competent without producing a genuinely new category. That is not always a failure of the developers. It is partly the cost of becoming an experienced player. A child does not yet possess a database of genre conventions. Every mechanic can therefore arrive as a mystery. Old games often represent the period when you were still learning possibility. Nostalgia remembers not only the discovery, but the person capable of it. Autobiographical memory gives special weight to certain periods of life. Researchers call one pattern the reminiscence bump. Adolescence and early adulthood can remain densely represented in later memory. These years often contain identity formation, first independence, and major transitions. Games experienced during that period can become identity landmarks. A release date may silently mark an entire school year. A soundtrack may reactivate the emotional shape of an old friendship. An avatar may preserve an early experiment with who you wanted to be. Your favorite game may have helped you declare your values. Revisiting it can feel like reconnecting with a continuous self. This is why an old save file can feel strangely personal. Its numbers are simple, but its choices once mattered to you. A new release asks for attachment after your identity is more established. The old game may have helped build the house itself. That creates an emotional asymmetry no graphics engine can easily remove. Familiarity creates another quiet advantage for old games. The familiar is often easier for the mind to process. You already know the map, the item values, and the enemy rhythms. Your hands remember menu paths before you consciously plan them. This processing fluency can be experienced as comfort or quality. Competence returns immediately because the learning cost was paid years ago. A new game temporarily makes the same player feel clumsy again. Its controls, currencies, icons, and systems still require translation. The friction of learning can be mistaken for evidence of bad design. Sometimes the interface truly is badly designed. But unfamiliarity and poor design are not the same thing. The old game begins after mastery, while the new game begins before it. Enjoyment also depends on the needs a game satisfies. Self-determination theory emphasizes competence, autonomy, and relatedness. An old favorite may deliver competence through deeply learned skills. It may deliver autonomy through a world you know how to navigate. It may deliver relatedness through memories of people who shared it. The pleasure may come from this complete motivational pattern. Childhood play may also have been less optimized and less observed. You chose strange weapons because they looked interesting. You explored useless rooms because curiosity was enough. You failed repeatedly without treating the failure as wasted time. Now guides, rankings, builds, and tier lists surround the experience. Optimization can begin before curiosity has a chance to speak. The question changes from what is interesting to what is efficient. External metrics can slowly crowd out the original reason for playing. Some modern games add daily tasks, passes, notifications, and limited events. These systems can transform invitation into obligation. This pattern does not describe every new game. Older games also contained grinding, manipulation, and commercial pressure. But obligation changes the emotional texture of play wherever it appears. Your current life context may be the largest difference of all. An adult gaming session often begins after a demanding day. You may have one free hour and several unfinished responsibilities. A message waits on the phone while another task waits in memory. The game must now compete with rest, sleep, relationships, and tomorrow. Your memory of childhood gaming does not include today's exhaustion. You are comparing a relaxed child with a tired adult. No new game can make that comparison completely fair. Abundance changes the experience before a game even starts. One childhood cartridge could receive weeks of committed attention. A modern library may contain hundreds of immediate alternatives. Every choice now creates visible possibilities you rejected. A slow opening can feel expensive when another game is one click away. Every small flaw points toward the rest of the library. The game begins to feel like an audition rather than a destination. An old favorite bypasses this decision because it already feels safe. You cannot recreate childhood by adding a pixel filter, but you can recreate some conditions that allow deeper play. Choose one game instead of confronting the entire library. Give it a protected window longer than 20 distracted minutes. Turn off the second screen and let boredom open the door to immersion. Stop reading opinions once you have decided to play. Experiment before optimizing and allow the opening to remain unfamiliar. Play with another person when relatedness was part of the original magic. Let a new game accumulate memories instead of demanding instant nostalgia. Old games often feel better because they carry more than gameplay. You may not miss the game as much as the person who first played it.